welcome everybody to this session. Today we are here to talk about sustainability and last mile logistics. This is obviously quite a hot topic and very relevant for today. Lots of changes happening in the world as well, and I think that's almost giving this a bit more of a push up the agenda to say how important sustainability generally is, not just obviously in last mile logistics, but across all elements and aspects of our lives. So I hope that you get something out of today. And please, like I said, please do ask questions. We are here to answer as much as we can about what we get up to in our last mile logistics with sustainability. So let's just go on to the next slide. Love a bit of good technology. There we go. So just before we get started, who am I? Which is probably a good question to answer first off. I'm your host. My name is Gemma Jones and I'm a Senior Business Development Manager within Last Mile Logistics. I specifically work on what we call the Delivery Service Partner Program, which incorporates one element of sustainability with the electric vehicles. And I work on sourcing and recruiting people that want to start their own business in last mile logistics in partnership with Amazon. That's what I spend most of my time on at the moment. I've been with Amazon for just over 3 years and previously worked in talent acquisition. And prior to that, I spent 11 years in the Royal Navy. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm super excited to be here today. We've got 2 great panelists for you as well, who we're going to meet shortly. So the agenda, we've got a quick icebreaker. And then we've got the introduction to our panelists. We're going to go through sort of Amazon's core objectives when it comes to sustainability. We're going to look at our approach. We're going to look specifically at under the roof and on the road, and then allow for questions. Okay, that's the sort of rough overview of what we're going to do. It's going to be fairly interactive. We'll have the panelists speaking as well, so there'll be an opportunity, obviously, to hear from everybody. Right. So we're going to do the icebreaker. It's on Slido. For those of you unfamiliar with it, all you need to do is grab that phone, scan the QR code, or join at slido.com and answer the question. One word do you associate with sustainability? So I'm going to do it myself as well. I'm scanning the QR code. I do love a little bit of Slido. I always have to use it whenever I do a presentation. Okay. Environment, yeah, that's a good one. Carbon reduction, technology. The future, yeah, that's good. I would agree with that. Do we have any others? Greenwashing. Oh, I've not heard that phrase before. That's interesting. Long lasting, everlasting. Continuity. 230, a number, 717. Interesting. Yeah. Definitely some thought-provoking ideas coming up on here. I might have to go away and Google greenwashing because I'm not entirely sure what that is. Carbon neutral, energy. And I think it's something that everybody can participate in, even at very low levels. Recycling, thinking about, I mean, I accidentally have solar panels on my house from when I bought it. But thinking at the moment, we're thinking about buying an electric car, but worrying about the infrastructure for charging it. So I think but super low level with recycling, I think everybody can do a little bit. But let's move on to the next question. Some interesting words there that we associate with sustainability. So this is one I've just actually answered. What sustainability actions do you take at home? No judgment, of course, if you don't have something to contribute here. Recycling, very good. I have solar panels. Let me add that one. water reduction, separate recycling. Yeah, absolutely. For a while, I was getting my milk delivered in glass bottles every day, like the old style. I mean, I don't know, Miriam, obviously you're in Spain, but you lived in the UK. So back in the day, like when I was a kid, milk always came in glass bottles on your front doorstep. And we did that for a couple of years. But actually, very, very ironically, it didn't keep as well as the ones that come in the plastic from the shops. But we do try to recycle. Turning off the lights. Yeah, my husband's always one for that. Follow me around the house, turning off the lights. Do people use the sort of Hive and all the sort of you can use lots of Bluetooth these days and to Wi-Fi to control your lights and energy and electricity, which I think is super clever and really useful. Nice. Being organized. That's probably one of the biggest ones, I think, being organized to actually do all of these things. And in today's sort of life of busyness, of working and everything else that goes on in modern life, I think it can be quite challenging. Movement sensors to keep the lights off. That's interesting. I think somebody posted in the chat box. Okay, let's move on to our third and final question, kind of along these lines, but sort of related to some of the information we're going to talk about later. Electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular. Will it be your next car purchase? Oh, wow, look at that. I'm still weighing up my options. We're thinking about it. I wonder what would push people into that yes bucket, or what keeps people in the no bucket. That would be an interesting follow-up question, one I didn't prepare. So, but if you want to write it in the chat, please feel free to do so. Range anxiety, says Matt. Yeah. I think that probably is one for my husband as well. He definitely has that. The price, yes, that's absolutely a very good point. Although we've just realised that our second car, which is just a runaround, is diesel, is worth more now than when we bought it 6 years ago, which is crazy because it was old then at the time as well. Access to charging points, absolutely. Yeah, interesting. Well, the government are kind of forcing our hand a little bit with new laws that are going to come in the next sort of 10 or so years, but hopefully the price will come down for sure. Right. Okay, so thank you for participating in our icebreaker. We're going to move to introduce our panelists. So we're going to start with Miriam. Miriam is the EU electrification lead, and I just absolutely love your job title. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, Miriam, how you got where you are and what you do?
Thank you. Thank you, Gemma, for inviting me, and hi, everyone. I'm super keen to be here speaking about one of my favorite topics, that is electrification. So I'm Miriam Gonzalo, curious by nature. That's how I define myself. I think that is the reason why, one of the reasons why I'm working on this innovation field right now in electrification. I work 9 years of my career in energy, some of them in what I still call the dark side of energy, from refining, supply chain, retail. But I realized that we spend a lot of time at work and we really need to work on something we believe. I believe the future needs to be sustainable. And that's why I really feel now I'm building something good for the future. So 4 years working in electrification, for the last one working in Amazon and leading the electrification team in Europe, as Gemma said. The key goal for my team, a big challenge, is to electrify what it is one of the biggest fleets in Europe, the Amazon logistic fleet. So super keen to the conversation later on.
Awesome. Thank you, Miriam. And to Alison, welcome. Could you also give us a quick overview of your background at Amazon or pre-Amazon and what you do day to day?
Sure. Thanks, Gemma. Hi, everyone. So my name is Alison Burns, and I've worked at Amazon now in the logistics business for 5.5 years. So that time has flown in. And in my time at Amazon, I've done many different jobs. So I joined Amazon in the operation, so in the delivery stations. I was a night shift manager. running a night shift team. And then I was a delivery station lead. So I led a delivery station in France. And then I moved into project-based roles, looking at standardization and continuous improvement. And I've now been in the sustainability team for just over a year and a half. So my role in this team is I look after our building decarbonisation programme in Europe. So I look after things like on-site solar, energy reduction, getting to net zero carbon building design. So we'll jump into more of that detail later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm super keen to have you both here. We're going to learn a lot, I think. I mean, this is an area that's a little bit outside my usual area of expertise. So I'm even learning as I prepared this event today. So it's super cool. Right. Okay. So let's jump straight in. So the core objectives for Amazon. So let's just start with the climate pledge. Okay, it's not on my slide, but I'm going to talk about it. So in September 2019, Amazon announced the climate pledge, which was a commitment to meet the Paris Agreement 10 years early, essentially. And it calls on signatories to be net zero carbon across their businesses by 2040, which is a decade ahead of the Paris Agreement. So how do we do that? How do we achieve that? So these are some of the ways that we sort of are working towards that goal. So as part of our goal to reach that net zero carbon by 2040, we are on a path to powering our operations with 100% renewable energy by 2025, which is 5 years ahead of our original target of 2030. And I'm sure Alison's going to touch a little bit on this later because that sort of sits in her under the roof space. In 2020, we became the largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy, reaching 65% renewable energy across our business, which is just incredible. I mean, I don't know if some of you have been to fulfillment centers or seen them as you drive down the motorway, but they are phenomenal beasts, and sometimes the size of like 20 football pitches, and most of them, or a great deal of them, are just covered in solar panels, which is an awesome use of the roof space, I think. And then we've got the shipments net zero carbon by 2030. So what is that? Basically, our goal is to deliver 50% of Amazon shipments with net zero carbon by 2030. Achieving shipment zero means basically from sort of customer, from picking the package, picking the item, right through to delivery. So from the fulfillment center where the item is picked, the materials used to package the item, the mode of transportation to get the package to the customer's door, in a sense, okay, encompasses that whole bit. And obviously there are multiple steps to that, and Amazon Logistics is one element of that sort of chain. And then the last one is obviously 100,000 electric vans purchased globally, and this obviously a little bit under Miriam's project. So we have 100,000 vans that will be on the road by 2030, which I think is just amazing. So that is a little bit of our core objectives. Let's move on. Right, so our approach to sustainability, obviously it's quite a complex topic, and there are this is a very simplistic diagram, like very simplistic, just to sort of help us on this journey today to talk about the different core elements that we're going to talk about. But in reality, there'll probably be a lot more offshoots on this diagram that would just confuse everybody. So we're going to be talking today, we're going to be looking at two of our approaches, the main ones, on the road, under the roof. Okay, obviously, when you talk about that sort of sustainable process from picking the parcel to delivering it, those two are kind of key elements within that. So that's what we're going to look at with our two experts on the panel. And we're going to start with under the roof. So under the roof, and I'm largely going to hand over to Alison here to sort of talk through these 4 focus areas, and hopefully as she does so, she's going to sort of touch on some of the challenges, the day-to-day challenges to implement these sorts of changes, what the sort of differences between the physical buildings and the material buildings, and also the processes, the ops processes, and how you balance that sustainability within those two elements. And sometimes, obviously, we're all about focusing on the customer, delivery for the customer. So any sustainability measures obviously need to go in rhythm with that. And so Alison's going to touch a little bit on that. So Alison, if I could invite you to just sort of come along, I'm going to move on to the next slide so you can get into the detail of these 4 focus areas and just sort of talk us through them, what it is under the roof.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, as Gemma said, we have specific focus areas where we target our programs in terms of buildings. So the first one I'll talk to you about is our renewable energy program. So as AMZL, Amazon Logistics Business, we have an on-site solar program. So we deploy solar installations on our roofs. So Gemma mentioned the FCs earlier, and this is part of our target to get to 100% renewable energy by 2025. So there's actually two ways that we're working to achieve this. So the first option is our on-site solutions for delivery stations. We have a relatively small building footprint size in comparison to, for example, the core fulfillment buildings, which are much larger. So we do install on-site solar, and we prioritize that for self-consumption. So our aim is to use the energy we produce to power our own operations. And then the second part of this is we also have a global team who go beyond just Amazon Logistics and support all of our businesses. And they have a large offsite renewable energy program. So this is where they look at large offsite wind or solar farms to really power energy and generate that for the grid. And they do that at a global level. So we have this on-site and an off-site path to get to this renewable energy target by 2025. So our renewable energy program is really important to us. I think it gives us a really good visual reminder. It's something that's very visible on our buildings. So our associates, our teams can see it. And so can our customers. And then obviously that allows us to solve some of our energy demand that we need in the building. Some of the key challenges around this are how we consider future-proofing ourselves. So obviously we operate 24/7. We're a business that operates 24/7. So we do, of course, use power during the night. So one of our key challenges to future-proof ourselves is to consider how do we make sure we have that energy supply all through the nights, and we're making sure that that's 100% renewable. So we always have to consider new technologies, how solutions are changing over time to make sure we're optimizing that renewable energy option for ourselves and making the most of that opportunity. So yeah, that's the on-site solar piece. And this links in a little bit to our energy reduction program. So this is another large program, and I really like this program because also it's something that really a lot of stakeholders within our business can contribute to. So it's something that the site operations team are our key partner in. They can help us drive energy reduction. We also have partners in like asset management who help us on site with facilities, who help us make sure we've optimized our building assets, so things like heating and cooling, etc. So our energy reduction program really focuses on existing buildings. So buildings that are already in our network that are operational. And we look at how we can reduce our energy consumption. So some of that is very simple things, just like Gemma mentioned in the questions at the start, and it's similar things as to what we would do at home. So do we have smart meters? Do we have good practices for turning the lights off? Do we have sensors where they're appropriate and things? Some of them are very much linked into operational processes. So obviously we're in the work environment, we are a delivery station, we need to load parcels in and out of the building, on and off vans and trucks. So we have a lot of doors open a lot of the time. So one of our biggest challenges is making sure we do our best to maintain that consistent temperature indoors so we can really minimize the impact of our heating and cooling demand. And then, of course, we support all our delivery stations across Europe. So within that, we have lots of different climate zones. We have different environmental impacts that we have to consider. So we always have to balance having standardized guidance on how to best optimize our energy versus do we need some regional specific guidance to really make sure we bring in more local elements into our planning and processes. But this one is a great one because I think it's a good program for all of our stakeholders to come together and work together to try and optimize these energy solutions. And then the second part of this one is we also look at technologies for this as well. So we have a sustainability engineering team who really help us look for new opportunities. Are there new technologies emerging where we can maybe have more efficient HVAC, for example? Can we have optimized design for our cooling? Then we have the teams that look after these systems once they're in the building. So are we changing the filters like regularly? Are we looking after that equipment to best optimize our energy consumption? And then, of course, the solar links in, because we prioritize that for self-consumption, so that we're trying to produce our own energy. And then, of course, if we need energy above and beyond that, we would obviously pull that from the grid. So that's our energy reduction one. Our next one is net zero carbon building design. So this really considers new building design. So this one is less associate facing in the first instance, and it more relies on our building teams, so our design and construction teams, our building design teams. We work a lot with architects to really optimize the design of new buildings. And of course, Amazon builds both new buildings, and we also go in and take over existing buildings. So we have to consider and balance different strategies of how to optimize for both of those. So this one obviously does look at energy optimization as well, but it's just a slightly different team that would own this, because we're starting from scratch, and we have the opportunity to install everything from the beginning and look at things like, how do we optimize fresh air? How do we reduce the carbon in our building materials? Could we make any swaps in our supply chain to have healthier or more locally sourced materials? We also look to try and track all of the data on this. So we try and track actual data using some tools so that we actually know what our carbon footprint is. So that's something we're working hard on at the moment. And we also kind of go beyond the carbon element. So we really want our buildings to be sustainable for the long term. So we think about decarbonisation, so through design, through trying to minimise the materials, through the supply chain. But we also want to think about health and wellness. So what can we do to contribute more to the environment that we're in? Can we think about green spaces and green areas? Can we think about fresh air initiatives? So how do we bring it all together so these buildings are a really nice place to work and also good for the environment as well? And then the final one is our Sustainability Ambassador Programme. So in Amazon, it's really important for us that we really develop and embed a sustainability culture across all of our businesses, all of our operations. So for Amazon Logistics, in every single delivery station, we have a sustainability ambassador. So this person is really our on-site champion. They have a normal job role in the delivery station, and then they really own developing that culture within their delivery station. So as part of that, they would organise events, fun events. So the latest one was actually just last week. So we had lots of initiatives and fun events. So all the delivery stations would take photographs, share their best practice, etc. And our sustainability ambassadors really help us drive our programs on site. So they're responsible for looking at our monthly metrics, for example. So the sustainability ambassadors would really help us drive waste diversion, for example, and energy reduction. So they have access to all of the metrics. They would help their teams on site to drive site-specific action plans. So they look for gaps in their processes, look where we can make improvements. And they also come up with new initiatives. So these people are in our stations, they're eyes and ears on the ground. So they're really in a great position to really help us understand what initiatives would be useful for them. And then, of course, they come up with lots of great practice and good process ideas themselves, which then we can help to share across all of our buildings to make sure we really scale the best ideas and make sure we can all learn from what works well. And then I mentioned waste diversion there as well. So we do want to divert as much waste as we can away from landfill. So our sustainability ambassadors are really a key partner for us to deliver that programme. So they make sure we've got the right infrastructure on site. Do we have all the right bins? Are we recycling in the correct way? Are we segregating the materials correctly so that our vendors can actually recycle this for us? They're inspecting our processes and mechanisms on that to make sure we're successful there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was, I mean, gosh, you know what you're talking about, don't you, Alison? I can feel the knowledge. Just, you know, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
It's a lot to cover in a short time. So
yeah, no, it's amazing though. It's amazing that is just all at your fingertips. All of that really awesome knowledge. So thank you so much for sharing what we're doing under the roof. I don't know if we have any specific questions. We've got a few minutes in the timetable before we move on to sort of on the road. Were there any questions? I can't see, obviously, sharing my screen at the moment, in the chat box that I want to answer at the moment for Alison.
There is one question now. How many megawatts have been generated by our solar?
how many megawatts have been generated by our solar systems? So I don't have that information to hand, unfortunately. But I mean, we do have many solar installations, and we do publish this globally. So one of the roles of our worldwide sustainability team is to collect all of that information, not just from AMZL sites, but from all of our sites. And they would help us track and understand how much we're producing and how much we're consuming as well. And then I see another one. Are there any plans to retrofit solar systems to existing delivery stations? Yeah, so we do have some plans to retrofit. This is really a case by case basis. It really depends on the age of the building, the roof design, because obviously we need the roof to be able to support the weight of the panels. So there's a few design elements that we need to consider as well. And then also we think about the climate region and what's appropriate there. So solar is obviously a fantastic option for us in South Europe, where we can get lots of sun. And then we also like to consider maybe what are other options, which happens to link in nicely to the next question from Tim. So is wind power also an option? Yeah, so I mean, we never exclude anything. We always want to think big and keep our options open. So personally, I think the future is probably hybrid options, where we wouldn't just limit ourselves to one solution. So we've got work ongoing to really establish what that best solution would look like. So we have a standardized solar program at the moment, and then other initiatives are scoped in progress as well. And then I see another question on the urban delivery and the cargo bikes. So I know that Miriam will be covering that off in her presentation. So I'll save that for Miriam's section.
All right, brilliant. We'll have time again at the end if anybody thinks of anything else. So thank you so much, Alison. Right, so we're going to move to Miriam with On the Road, and she's going to sort of take over and talk through what our programs are, what some of the challenges are, what's coming, and I think this is going to be super cool. So over to you, Miriam.
Thank you. So first of all, really interesting, Alison. Thank you for sharing the under the roof. I will cover now what we call on the road, and just for the audience here, what we call on the road is basically all the sustainable initiatives that we need to put in place from the time the parcel leaves the warehouse, that's the under the roof, to the time the parcel reaches the customer doorstep. And in order to make that part of the last mile delivery sustainable, we have already some programs in motion. So when we think, or at least myself, think about sustainable transportation in the last mile, the first thing I think about is electric vehicles. There are some other options, even though this is a big rock to solve, that can help us to overcome the challenge and to make transportation sustainable. One we are going to talk about that Fahad was asking is what we call alternative transportation. One is micromobility, so light electric powered vehicles, three-wheelers or walkers. And then the Hub program, Hub Delivery Partner Program that we have also kicked off, and we have big presence in Spain and other countries in Europe. But let's start with electric vehicles, if you agree. So when we talk about electric vehicles, and for anyone here in the audience who has challenged or faced the challenge of moving, transitioning an internal combustion engine fleet to an electric vehicle fleet, it is not just about changing the vehicle. That is a big part of the challenge, but there's many other pieces of the puzzle to glue together. One of those pieces on top of the electric vehicle is the infrastructure. So now we need to define where to charge, what's the right charger, what's you can go to the previous one, Gemma. I'm going to spend some time on that. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. So we need to look at the infrastructure, where to charge, what's the right power level for the charging sessions, what's the right time frame of the day. And once you have all that planned, you really need to make some big number counts and see how many megawatts you need. So you need to upgrade the power we are normally using. And once all that is solved, we definitely need our partners to deliver our Amazon Smiles to the customers. So there's 3 big buckets that we need to solve. If we start with the first one, the vehicles, this is nothing new because this was published in late 2019, that we placed the largest order on electric vehicles ever, 100,000 electric delivery vans. And I'm going to be precise on the delivery vehicle, EDV as we call it, because what we did with Rivian was not only place the largest order, we really designed this amazing vehicle you can see on the screen right now. I've been fortunate enough to jump into it and see it first face to face. So we designed it to be fit for purpose for delivery and for our sustainable deliveries. So the Rivian vans hit the road in North America. They're not here in Europe yet. We already have electric vans in Europe. Could we move to the next one, Gemma, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. So in Europe, we closed 2021 with 3,000 electric vans, and we delivered more than 100 million parcels with sustainable transportation methods. And as Gemma mentioned before, the goal is to have 100,000 electric vehicles on road by 2030. But there are challenges, as I mentioned some of them before. So this is just the beginning of the journey. So the first challenge is to understand when and how fast we can deploy the electric vehicles and understand what's the critical path. And most of the times, power is in terms of timing. How long does it take to get the right power on the site to get our electric vehicles deployed? Because we are not talking now here about kilowatts, we are talking here about megawatts. So that's one of the things that we really need to plan in advance. The advantage that is not a big challenge is that we have specific operations in a specific time frame of the day. So we deliver parcels during the day, not during the night. So during night, what our DSPs do, they can park the vans, they can charge overnight and get the van ready for the next day to operate. So if we go to the next one. So as we said, we have the vehicles, and even though the market is still evolving on the vehicle side, and we're waiting for longer range batteries and total cost of ownership parity is not there yet. I saw some comments on why you're not thinking about an electric vehicle yet. Price was one of them. On top of the challenges on the vehicle and the infrastructure, we always need someone, a really strong partner to deliver our parcels. And we have this delivery service partner program that Gemma is leading. And here what we open up is the opportunity for entrepreneurs to really create their own parcel delivery business with a primary customer being Amazon. This amazing team has over 100 active DSPs, and last year, only in the UK, they were driving more than 1,000 electric vehicles and shipped, they deliver 45 million parcels. So this is how we are creating and gluing together the pieces of the puzzle for electric vehicles. Happy to take any questions now before we jump to micro. Let me see, what did I miss?
There were questions. The first one that actually kind of ties with the first question as well is, will we need to up the amount of solar panels once we have increased the amount of our electric vans?
Yeah, so definitely the power that we will need will be considerably, so more than what we need now. The source of the power can be multiple. One can be if there's any power oversupply that we get from the solar generation that we get through the solar panels on the roof. That is one option. We might need to store it because we will normally consume it overnight in the bands. But basically, due to the amount of power that we need, it might, there is a high likelihood that it will come from the grid upgrades.
Okay, then the second question is, are those 100,000 vehicles, are they only from the USA or is this from the whole?
We will see, yeah, we will see. Those were, the order was placed in the US, but I hope we will see some Rivians in Europe too.
Okay, and the third question was, what's the percentage of electrical vehicles to total fleet in Amazon? I don't know if you have this information ready right now.
Not from the top of my head right now. That is growing day after day.
Okay, then the fourth question is, do you look at driving style or behavior, for example, most efficient acceleration or braking when you look at vehicles?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So definitely with electric vehicles, braking a lot or acceleration a lot, if not needed, decrease the state of charge of the battery. So that is important. So we will definitely look at that and we will advise what are the best, not the behaviors, but like the most efficient way to drive the EVs. That is something that we have in the pipeline.
Okay, then three more questions actually. Why do we not look into startup companies that have to do with mobility financing for electronic vehicles?
For electric vehicles. Yeah, there's different options to source these. So we have an internal team sourcing the vehicles, and actually it is the DSP partners who owns these vehicles. So that's something. There are different options. It could be one, but there is on the DSPs to source.
Okay, then the next question is, are we only recharging our vehicles from our own energy sources?
So right now, yes. So we have, as I've said before, we have a stable operations in terms of the timing on the day. So we are lucky to have the whole night to charge our vehicles, to low power charge our vehicles. So they're parked on site and charged on site. There is only, we also provide some solutions in case of specific emergencies on road. But the 99.9 period, yes, on site.
Okay. Do we have any performance statistics, including range and number of kilometers traveled per day in electric vehicles?
Yes, so based on the, definitely we are a data-driven company, so yes. So basically based on the limited range on the vehicles we have today, we have the vehicles that the market provides, and because you know this market is evolving, and the commercial vans market in terms of the range is evolving slower than the passenger cars. So average battery on the commercial side should be today a 50 kilowatts hour. So that is the maximum with the 10% that we keep in order to make sure that the delivery associates, our drivers, can be back to the delivery station safely. Those are the maximum. If we convert that into kilometers, that would be the maximum that we do with a van today on road.
Okay. Do we have any, are we also looking at the inbound activity, for example, the trucking towards the DSPs? Is there a carbon plan for this too, or are we talking about this later?
On what? Sorry, I missed that one.
So basically the inbound activity
Mile, yeah, he's talking
before it
about
goes to the
mile.
customer.
It's
Yeah.
middle mile, Miriam.
That is middle mile. So I'm not going to cover middle mile. So
Okay.
there's definitely a program, the same program for the middle mile, to look at how can we make the sustainable transportation, because at the end of the day, what we committed in and on our sustainability commitments is that by 2030 we will deliver 50% of the deliveries net zero carbon. So the middle mile is important. I'm not going to cover that because, as we said, my remit is big enough and it's the last mile from the warehouse to the customer doorstep. But I'm sure that Gemma can bring that to another session, Gemma.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share some information through the emails that will follow up as well, with links to certain sources that we have externally.
Yeah, on the on the electric delivery vans, we will see. So the business is growing, and that number, I cannot confirm it's going to be only Europe and the US. Volta tracks, that's for the middle mile. The latest news I have from Volta, Sebastian, is I have seen the tracks, not the vans. So we will make sure that to Tristan, so that we take into account climate and like the weather conditions when we route our vans, because we know that impacts the state of charge of the battery and how much we can use a day. So definitely we will take that into account, and we take that into account already today. And then on the rail, that's different innovation and different team. That's an option for the middle mile, definitely. More difficult on the last mile delivery, my personal view. And then on autonomous, I do not think that so far that technology is not fully available, or the fully autonomous. We have seen this technology in some passenger cars quite advanced. But it is not even developed on the passenger side. I think it will come in a point in time. I think it is early days for autonomous driving. And what I'm missing more.
Do you want to, some of the questions that are being asked, you might be able to cover in the next section, Miriam, just conscious of time. Okay. I didn't realize this would be such a hot topic with the amount of excellent questions and engagement from the audience. So thank you all very much. But do you think we should move on and then answer the questions?
The micro, so I can answer Fahad on the micro one, and we can take some of the other questions later. But thank you for all the interaction. I mean, I'm as passionate as you with the topic, so happy to answer. So micromobility is something that complements the four-wheelers electric vehicles, because I cannot say micromobility is not about electric vehicles. It is. It is about light electric vehicles. Some of them you can see here in the screen. So we have cargo bikes, cargo scooters. We also have walkers that use push carts to deliver the parcels. So micromobility is a good solution. And why are we investing in micromobility? It's a good solution for super high dense areas. There is even some areas in the city centers, in the big cities, that are being banned. The access is being banned for four-wheelers. So if we really want to keep delivering smiles to our customers, that's what we are obsessed about, we should invent, we should innovate. And these are solutions that we can use and we are using already. So in the case of the cargo bikes, we can also benefit from the growing cycling infrastructure that most of the governments are pushing forward. And a big benefit is that by using micromobility, we are reducing the congestion, some big part of the impact of our operations in our cities, such as the congestion, so many vans, and the parking space that we need to use for our operations. So this is on micro. Yeah, I think I answered your question. Thank you, Fahad. And last but not least, we can move forward. We have the Hub DP program. So Hub DP program is a last mile delivery channel in Amazon Logistics, where we partner with local store owners and they do the super final last mile delivery to the customer doorstep. So that means that if we think about operations in the morning, we can have our van fill in the warehouse. Then instead of having to stop in every single customer doorstep, we only do a minimum number of stops. We stop in the store owner's store. We deliver bulky size of parcels, and they deliver to the final customer themselves. They know the neighborhoods, they even know the neighbors. And with that, we also save congestion, the parking challenge. We reduce the usage of vans, and we can even maximize the utilization of vans that we can reuse several times along the day. And on top of all that, something that is, I think, one of the key success stories of the program is that we collaborate with local communities, we get closer to them, and we provide a new part of their business.
Yeah. And we did have a wonderful video for HubDP that technology has failed me at the last moment, and for some reason it's not compatible with the WebEx. But what I will do is I will get it out to this audience so you can watch it. It's in Spanish but has subtitles, and it truly is a fantastic representation of the program. But I think there were some questions on HubDP, so that's the video. But we will. I will send it out via email, a link to it so you can all watch it, along with the other video that I wanted to share on the vehicles as well. But should we go to questions? I think there was some in the chat box that have been popping up.
Definitely. So specifically on Hub, we launched the program in 2020 in Spain, and it has grown massively. We will launch in other countries within the year. So that is one of the questions from here. What is the volume of packages? So it depends on the store. It's a small number of packages with reasonable size. So actually, the super heavy, bulky packages are not handled by Amazon Logistics ourselves. So we have a different team that is also on the logistics side that handle the XL size parcels. So definitely that's not something we will handle to the HubDP partners. What else we have in here?
What kind of range and payload can a HubDP achieve?
Yeah, so that's similar to what I just answered. So basically on the HubDP, we have a small number of parcels because that is not the core business of our partners. This is a complement to what they do to their business activities. It depends by store because it is quite flexible on that side.
The next question was, would you like to use HubDP with new sustainable housing development projects?
So HubDP is quite flexible, and there's definitely a lot of opportunities for HubDP. It started as this concept, but it can evolve and definitely become a hub on itself as the big word. There's another question similar to that on reverse logistics. No, they do not handle reverse logistics today.
Okay. Is there a requirement to have an Amazon livery, or is there an opportunity to provide those services for other parcel companies as well?
So on the HubDP program, I don't know, Gemma, if you want to answer on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer. I think I can answer the question. So HubDP uses additional resource that the store may have. For example, we are running a small pilot in London this year, but in the EU, it's predominantly going strong in Spain. And one of our hub partners is a DIY store. So he has this element in as well as his day-to-day activities, and he's free to do other stuff if he wants to. Of course, it's not mutual, it's not exclusive. But I don't know any other the last mile areas that are doing this specifically. There's versions of this and things that are similar within last mile, I think, across the industry, but I think this is quite unique.
Yeah, on the question on India, so in India, HubDP is massive. They call it I have a space. It is not something new that we have invented in Europe. This is something that exists within Amazon. It's massive in India. It is well known and a super successful part of the business, and it is called I Have a Space. So yeah, Sebastian, thank you.
Okay, then another question was, how do we plan on managing tier 1 events like Black Friday, and how will the hubs manage this volume?
So there is flexibility, and the good point is that we have a close relationship and a strong planning, scheduling with our partners. So we actually are not going to push a massive amount of new parcels to them because of a tier 1, because that is something that we carefully plan with many time in advance from the Amazon logistics side. So that is on us to properly plan. If they have flexibility to deliver something else, that is an option, but the bulky part of these tier 1 events, as you call it, it is on the Amazon logistic business as usual delivery.
Okay, then another question was, do the hubs handle reverse logistics?
I think I already answered to that. No,
okay.
not yet. Yes. As Gemma was saying, there is a pilot in the UK, nothing in Ireland so far.
Okay. I think we caught up.
Have we answered everything?
Yes.
Excellent.
As of now.
So there is a QR code here which will take you to Amazon's main sustainability page for anybody that wants to do a little bit more reading around the topic. There's lots more data, lots more talking points, some good videos, one of which I was going to share today. And on completion of this event, either later today or tomorrow, you'll receive an email with some links to what we've talked about. I'm going to share the Hub DP Spain video because I think it's fantastic. And this particular video, this webinar, will go onto the YouTube channel, as I said. Please do feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Always happy to increase our network. And if there's no additional questions, I would just say thank you to our two panelists, to Alison and to Miriam. A super interesting topic, incredible engagement from the audience. I think we may need to do this like twice a year, Miriam and Alison, because it's quite popular, I think. But it's been really interesting. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I hope you really enjoyed the session as well. And yeah, that's great. And if anybody, please feel free to respond to the emails that you get from me if you have any further questions that haven't been answered, and we'll do our best to get back to you. But Miriam, Alison, Philip, thank you so much for supporting today. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday and have a great weekend, everybody.